Good morning. Thank you for sticking around for this innovation session today. I would have 4 fantastic presentations and thank our presenters up here for sticking around as well, and going to give you a good sense of the innovation they've been using at their libraries and whatnot. So first I want to tell you, make sure you silence your cell phones, any electronic devices, please silence those at this moment. Also, this session is being recorded. Want to let you know that. Hopefully, if things work out well, we'll have a little bit of time for questions afterwards. So stick around for that, and go ahead and give our panelists, presenters, a round of applause, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Bobby, and thanks everyone for joining. My name is Nettie Lagace. I'm the Associate Executive Director at NISO, the National Information Standards Organization. I am a librarian. I do not work in a library. I am kind of a jack of all trades and master of none, as I manage all the different standards creation projects at NISO, which is great because it allows me exposure to experts in the field, such as all of you, people who are very intimate with their work and the problems of their work. And this is a problem that came up a year ago, where members and librarians, publishers said, well, content platform migrations sometimes create problems for us. Can we get together and create a solution, maybe make some recommendations for improving our lives? So what this new project at NISO, this started a few months ago, about 6 months ago, and this work is going to create a recommended practice. So this is not a standard, it's a slightly less momentous kind of document, but it's recommendations that hopefully would be adopted by different stakeholders in the industry to help with standardizing processes and make recommendations to parties to improve communication, specifically before, during, and after migration. So this is when a publisher has a lot of content, typically journals, but it could also be books, where it is hosted on a particular platform. They use their own systems vendors for hosting content, and their contract ends with that vendor, or there might be some other reason for moving to a new vendor, and so they're moving their content, the URLs change, the interface might change. There's various bits and pieces that go along with that process that make it important to communicate to stakeholders like libraries and users about what's happening and how things are changing. So this is the impetus for this project. What is the project going to deliver? Some guidelines, some basic recommendations to what kinds of things should be kept in mind for this. So don't forget about the other people who are trying to keep up with this migration, the libraries and the end users. How best can you communicate with them? What are some sample communications, some sample messages or timing for these messages? And then also checklists. Don't forget this, don't forget that. And I think it will be helpful because for these kinds of migrations, they don't happen that often for a particular company, and some companies haven't gone through them before, so I think this will be very helpful for those people taking part. So when we started this project, we got a lot of interest from people to participate, and as part of that, we could not accept everybody. We would have a working group that was about 60 or 70 people, and that's a little hard to work with, but we asked for more input on what kinds of problems that we might be able to address in the work itself. So just kinds of input. So a publisher mentioned kinds of things that they are dealing with, even what kinds of consensus for features in the new platform within their own organization. How can we schedule and message our customers about what's happening? How can we migrate our customer data? What kinds of concerns or things should we be thinking about? Consensus within our own company for timing on switching over customers and running parallel sites. And then redirecting all of the URLs and managing the MARC records and the discovery service data and doing it in 2 places at once for a while. So these are kind of the things that they're concerned about, but of course that has to be managed in the midst of communicating with everyone. So just trying to make sure we can make the recommendations organized enough to help that process. So some library concerns that were expressed in the early phase was, well, we don't understand what's going on and we don't hear about it until it's too late. So can you please let us know what's happening and make sure it's directed to the right person so that we can do things about that. Entitlements, our subscriptions are not carrying over. We're missing information. Proxy information is not preserved, so people can't get to where they need to go when it's off campus. And our knowledge base, which is managing our entitlements for our discovery service or other places, this is not up to date and we're missing information. So we need to be sure that the knowledge base data that's sent to the link resolver is managed in parallel. So every NISO working group consists of a cross-stakeholder makeup. This is really important for NISO projects, that we have voices from the different walks of life in the information community. So the two co-chairs, Athena Hepner, you may have seen her around here. She's a librarian at the University of Central Florida. Kim Steinle is also very active in the community, and she's at Duke University Press. These are fantastic co-chairs, really energetic and have a good handle on the problem. And then the participants are librarians, publishers, and also platform vendors. So Adapon and Silverchair in particular are participating, and we have had interest from others, and we're keeping in touch in the process of this project for all of the people that couldn't participate directly. But the work plan itself, so we put together the project and have made a plan which included this calendar, which has shifted a little bit. I will explain. There's an information gathering phase, which was timed to run from June to September, and that information gathering is still going on. It's not all that unusual for NISO projects, particularly when you start finding things that you didn't know about. You need to dig around. So this is the phase that we're in now, and it is November, but the information gathering has not yet completed. That's okay. What does the information gathering consist of? Well, reviewing all the related recommendations, particularly project transfer you may be familiar with, and that's recommendations for publishers to communicate when individual titles are moved from publisher to publisher. But there's some parallels here, so keeping that in mind. Looking at automation for KBARD and DOI recommendations and so on. Talking to stakeholders about how their migrations have gone in the past, what lessons they've learned in retrospect, making sure that any tools they created could be used in this project, talking to librarians about their experiences, and what other groups are needed. So this information gathering phase is still going on, but it's hoped to be wrapped up pretty soon. They were planning to write the draft the end of this year. That has been pushed off a little bit. So we are moving the comment period. It's sort of the next phase you can expect to hear from us, probably about March. We will make an announcement that the draft is completed, and we would really like to have the community's input for a 30-day comment period. So keep on the lookout for that, and your input will be really, really helpful for improving the draft, finalizing it, and then publicizing it, which I think will not happen in April or May, probably, hopefully by ALA, knock on wood, and that will be the process. It'll be a pretty quick recommendation, but I think everyone's really energetic and has a lot of information to share, so it's just the process of organizing that and making it into something that's coherent. So, thank you. All right.
Hi, my name is Karen Alcorn, and this is Erin Wentz, and we are librarians at MCPHS University, and that is formerly known as the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and we represent both the Boston and Worcester campuses, and today we're going to tell you about our citation analysis project. So meet our multi-campus team. In the summer of 2017, the idea that this project started when a faculty member asked Erin for recommendations regarding software that could be used for a specific type of analysis. we started wondering where they were getting their research and tools for that. So today we're going to share our experiences working on our citation analysis project and provide you a model that you could implement at your own school. We will also be providing you ways to use this information in the future. At our first meeting, our project scope was enlarged to include collecting, documenting, and analyzing several factors regarding faculty-published research. The list included type of article, publishing journal, library resources used, and the research tools used. We also looked at if the resources and research tools were either library provided, university provided, through a co-author or their institution, personal, free, or other. We received Institutional Review Board approval in July of 2018, and it was decided to use 1 year of data for our pilot. So we looked at July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. We contacted our administration for a scholarship list, and then since then alerts have been placed in PubMed, Google Scholar, and Scopus, and these lists are compared to make sure that we don't miss anything. We contacted the MCPHS Technology Group for a current list of installed software, and we created an access database. In August of 2018, team members started populating the access database. We each started with 5 records. We had regular meetings to discuss questions and concerns. We fine-tuned our access form, and we created a tracking spreadsheet, which included reviewer, checker, access number, among other fields. Many questions were raised during our weekly meetings. The 2 areas was resources used and software used. I'm going to have you guys try this. See the middle example on page 3 of your handout. Take a half a minute to review this software example and underline the software you would put in the record. Note that your copy includes more of the article text than our slide does, and that this is a very simple example to give you a taste of it, but a lot of the other data that we collected and reading through these articles was much more challenging. We do have extra pages by the door, on the chair by the door. So this is, did you choose the same records that we recorded? iSpring, Blackboard, and Qualtrics. So an image of our final access form is also in your handout. Why did we choose Access? It was no extra cost to us. It is interactive and gave us the ability to choose items from a drop-down menu and to add to that menu as needed. Greg, one of our team members, already knew the database, and it could exist on our shared drive, and it has built-in reporting features. Access is not the most intuitive system, so the team was given some training, and tutorials and documents were also created to help make our collection seamless. Weekly meetings kept us moving forward and were iterative. We progressed in small steps. Content was clarified and we moved forward with majority consensus. Questionable content included a letter to the editor that reported study results. We thought that was important. We also asked if we were going to include book reviews. And then something to remember when you're looking to create your team, that some articles required subject knowledge of to properly document that. So some takeaways include removing duplicate entries if multiple authors are from your institution, saving annotated copies of reviewed materials or articles so you can go back and remember what you did, and keeping internal deadlines. If someone got behind, then it was a domino effect. And challenges included authors provided incorrect citations in their scholarship list. Authors identified the software category but not the specific tool. Databases were mostly only mentioned in systematic reviews. Now Erin is going to take a look at our results.
Within the database, we have basic lists of the items we identified as we were entering the data, and more complex inquiries into how the resources are being used. The robust finding and reporting features in Access let us dig deeply into the data. We can explore secondary questions such as which schools at MCPHS are using which types of resources, and what institutions do our authors tend to collaborate with. All of that data could potentially affect our collection development decisions. What are we going to do with the data we have collected so far and the data we will be adding as we expand the project into additional years? We are going to start by supporting our researchers' data collection needs. Since we began this project, the institution's technology group has created a page on their site that clarifies what software they support for different types of users on campus. We plan to augment that list with pages on our own site, broken down by types of resources. We will list and link to university-provided software while making it clear that we're not the source of those products, as well as to free software. We will also highlight content in our collection that relates to using those resources, such as manuals for using SPSS or other statistical analysis tools. We can also proactively reach out to the different schools on campus about the types of resources they tend to use. We can use those conversations for relationship building, instruction support, and reference support. We also plan to add resources based on what we found. We have identified needs, which we can clarify through our discussions with with people in the different schools on campus to see if they really need this product or if something similar would be a better fit. For example, we are trialing the EconLit database, a resource that was mentioned by name, but that we do not currently provide. We can compare it with other economic products and packages to see if, again, that's really the best fit for us. For software, we have identified some possible funding sources, which you can find on your handout, such as NASL's J. Daly Technology Grant that we might be able to apply for to get some funding to purchase some software. We have identified other departments on campus that we can meet with about collaborating on possible partnerships for providing resources. They have different funding pools, contacts, and background knowledge that can be useful in helping us obtain content that is not directly library related. We can influence their purchasing decisions by sharing our data. We can also mix our data with other contextual information, such as enrollment figures, anecdotal evidence, and the institution's strategic planning to prepare for those conversations. For example, you might say to an academic department, several people in this school have worked on projects using this software or resource that the library does not provide, or the institution does not provide. Only one project outside of the school used it. The tool would directly support Course X, which has been offered for the past several years and has steady enrollment. We have heard from several professors that they are also working on projects that would use this type of software or resource. Students are increasingly being expected to know how to use it once they graduate. The accreditation standards for this discipline now include the broad competency Y, which having access to this resource would directly support. How can we work together to get this product or resource? The library can offer time, negotiation support, some funding, etc., whatever you're willing to provide. If you can add funding, expertise, communication strategies, etc., whatever you're hoping to receive. Or you might say to your institution's technology group, in looking at faculty members' research projects, we noted that several people across the institution were using this software that the institution does not provide. Although the institution provides software A and B, this software has the unique feature Z. The only way to approximate that feature now is to go through a convoluted multi-step process that has many possible fail points. We have heard from faculty members that rely on our existing products that they often need to contact you for help with getting those steps to work correctly. Adding this piece of software will free up your time to focus on this other big project we know you have underway. How can we help you to get this software? The information you find as you collect this data can be powerful when you combine it with other information. And if you have questions, feel free to ask us during the Q&A period or contact us after the session.
I'm Tom Phillips. I am the director of the Digital Theological Library, a co-owned library by a number of seminaries. We now have 18 members. We license proprietary content, but we also have created the open access Digital Theological Library. We are the most aggressive curator of open access content in OCLC. I'm over there all the time. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing and how it works. That our mission is to make all open access content in religious studies and related fields. We do, since religious studies is inherently interdisciplinary, we do some sociology, psychology, anthropology, history, literature, those kinds of things. Discoverable by everyone, everywhere in the world through a single search experience, free forever for everyone, in a non-commercial environment. That's significant too. It all begins with value and values. Value, why buy it when you can simply curate it free? We do not want to be chumps. And values, that is, who has the right to read and who has the right to be heard. Well, for us, who has the right to read? Everyone. Who has the right to be heard? Everyone. So what we are doing is aggressively making this content easily discoverable for everyone in the world. We have users now in over 150 countries, over 25,000 regular users. We are the most used religious studies library in the world at this point. Who has the right to be heard? We are aggressively finding underrepresented voices and making those voices heard. We have teams who mine the institutional repositories throughout Africa, throughout Latin America, throughout Asia, and make those dissertations and that content discoverable through our search engine, which is OCLC's WMS, I'll talk about in a minute. That I think the under-recognized challenge with the open access movement is discovery. In order for people to use open access, we have to make it discoverable in our local ILS, and we have to make it easy for other people, other institutions, to make that content discoverable in their local ILS. So our approach is to curate content in OCLC's knowledge base, and then to make that content available in three ways: through our website, oadtl.org, through OCLC's knowledge base. We globalize our collections. If you search for the prefix DTL space OA, you will find hundreds of free collections. All you have to do is activate them. And also for WMS users, we share directly with them, and they can activate them. I'll be updated in real time. We went live on July 1st, 2018. To date, we have 200,000 ebooks in the collection, over 100,000 dissertations in religious studies and related disciplines. As I said, over 25,000 users in 150 countries. As of 9/15, we had 48,000 titles from the last 25 years, so we're not just curating old public domain content. 14,000 from the last 5 years. We curate over 5,000 titles a month. We have the equivalent of 6 full-time people who all they do is curate OA. It's funded by these seminaries, and now we actually have 9 more who have joined us in addition to these. To give you an example of some of the stuff we do, we curate university-level OA content, open access from publishers like Brill, De Gruyter, University of Chicago, Cambridge. We find Gorgias Press, Archeo Press, various university presses. We find all their OA content. We go and we clean out that website, make a collection in the knowledge base in OCLC, turn that on in our discovery. Open access journals, institutional repositories. We do not discriminate based on religious tradition, so Claremont School of Theology is a progressive Protestant institution. Liberty University is a fundamentalist Baptist institution. University of Glasgow is a secular institution. Harvard, of course, Duke, Asbury, Yale, Brigham Young, which is Mormon. We also have a specialist in Arabic literature who does Arabic content from the Islamic tradition. Scholarly societies, we have created collections in OCLC knowledge base of every member of the Council of Learned Societies, all of their OA content. We have curated, added our collections, and made discoverable. Public domain stuff like Princeton Theological Commons, Globe Ethics, HathiTrust, Internet Archive. Museums like the Met. The Met has like 500 titles on art and architecture and Middle Ages. That if you're studying Christian thought in the Middle Ages, you need to study art and architecture. No one else had ever added those to the knowledge base until we did. University of Chicago's Oriental Institute has about 500 titles that we've added. Interestingly, they're not even in the University of Chicago's collection as books. Denominational archives of various sorts. The way we do this, 2 pieces of information are needed, OCLC number and a stable URL. So we have somebody look up the record in WorldCat, find the OCLC number, look it up, then we have to add 3 pieces of information, make sure it has an OCLC number so it's discoverable, a stable URL, and change the record from book to ebook so that it'll display the URL. Demonstration of the value, why buy something when you can get it free? You can see all these scholarly societies that we have added their content from the website. When we go to a site, we organize our collection, a collection for each website. That way they're easier to maintain. Like the University of Chicago, those books are actually sold through Gobi and Oasis. You can buy them, they're about $50,000, or you can go to OCLC's knowledge base and simply activate the collection that we've created. A lot of these titles are already for sale, like the ones from, you can see all those initials down there. I ran out of space to say all the scholarly societies we've done. All of the scholarly societies in humanities, literature, social sciences, we've tried to mine all of their ebook content. Literally thousands of titles. Of the 200,000 we have in our collection, about 100,000 are cataloged as e-content nowhere else. Some of the publishers that we've done, one of the I don't have on here, that we have about 600 titles from Brill, and we buy all of Brill's content in religious studies, philosophy, that when we bought the collection, they actually sent me the wrong bill by accident. They sent me the bill for the most well-funded seminary in the world, and I said, wait a minute, this bill is twice what it's supposed to be. They said, oh, sorry. We forgot, you all don't pay for the open access content, do you? So the other school was paying literally $27,000 more for the same content because we had already curated the OA content. They had not. You can't afford not to curate OA. That kind of thing happens routinely because when we buy collections from publishers, we say, oh, by the way, we've already curated all your OA content, take all of that out. And so we save probably about $180,000 a year on our monograph budget by doing that. We go to institutional repositories, dissertations. Here are some of the schools that we've done their dissertations. In religious studies, related disciplines, we do psychology, counseling also aggressively. And we do it without regard for the religious tradition. If you look at these schools, they represent Jewish schools, Christian schools, Muslim schools, secular universities, anyone doing things that are in our area. We have now created more collections in OCLC's knowledge base than any other entity at all. If the OCLC people were here, they'd verify that. Museums and archives, here are some of the museums and archives that we've collected titles from and the number of titles that we've collected. We have an army of interns working on this. One of the things that we've done aggressively is train interns how to curate this OA content and add these collections. We can do non-residential internships. Foreign titles, we have lots of foreign titles and foreign voices in here that you can see these institutions that we've curated their collections and added. So why buy it when you can curate it? Don't be a chump. Who has the right to read? Everyone. Who has the right to be heard? These underrepresented voices, we take that very, very seriously and make those voices heard. So the takeaways, add the open access digital theological library to your A to Z list. There's the email or the URL. And begin aggressively curating OA content. You cannot afford not to. We need to make it available in our local ILS and easy for other people to import into their local ILS. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Barbara Bishop from Research and Instruction, and this is Clint Bellanger from Systems at Auburn University Libraries. Today we're going to be talking to you about how we were trying to find a a solution to raise our profile with our faculty members that didn't cost anything. So we looked at ORCID, and we have Springshare. And with some coding and editing, we went from the vanilla profile to adding the ORCID ID and my work section from ORCID to the individual librarian's profile page. Now, I'm going to be talking more about the public side. Clint will talk about the technical side.
All right, so what we're looking at here is ORCID's public APIs. There are these nice URLs, and you replace the zeros there with your ID, and you get back XML data that comes from the ORCID system. That first link is your general profile data, and then there are feeds that for specific things like works, employment history, funding, lots of other things. But we're interested in the works, and that third link is specifically drilling down to a specific work, and you'll see that this is the field we want, is a work citation field, and what we have there is a plain text citation. And so that's what we want to pull into our list to display in the profiles. So next we're going to look at an example that is sort of a stripped down page without all the libguides part of it. So our hello world example here, we have a script that reads from this API and processes that XML data and displays our citation and then the link to that work in a nice list. And so what I want to do is dive very simply into the moving parts for this so you can kind of understand how to implement it on your LibGuides profile or any other system like this. So a very simplified view source here. There are three main parts. We have our ORCID JavaScript that we've developed that handles this process that ideally would go in the head section of your websites. And in the body section, you have an empty div for your My ORCID Works. That's where you want your list of works to appear on the page. And then you have a script that kicks it all off, says show all the works for this specific ID. And if you have full control over your profiles, if something homegrown, this is pretty simple to add into your system. But what about third-party sites like LibGuides? So that's what we're going to look at. It's how to put these pieces into place. And you can do this at your institution. So the first two parts are going to be done by the LibGuides admin. So under admin, look and feel, there's a section for custom JavaScripts and style sheets. And you'll notice this little zoomed in text specifically mentions that this is going to be inserted into the head section of our pages. So that's what we know we're in the right spot here. And so our ORCID script is going to be added here. Notice also at the bottom of this page, there's a place to upload customization files. You can actually upload a copy of this JavaScript to Springshare's cloud, and it'll give you the correct link and everything to add there. The second part is just going to be one tab over on page layout, and that's where we're going to add the div that's going to contain the list of works specifically to the profile pages. So under look and feel, page layout, profile, but LibGuides has this excellent thing where each major type of page, like guides and profiles, has its own layout code that you can edit. And so specifically on the profile, we're going to go in and add our div for the My ORCID Works wherever we want it to appear on the page. If you were to scroll down here, you would see that usually the page has some column layouts, and you just place where you want that to appear. And after the page loads, the script is going to fill in that section. And that's only set up for the admin side. Now it's ready for your users to plug in their ORCID IDs. And so what we do is we send out an email to our librarians and say, hey, this is a little tiny script that you log into your LibGuides profile, and this is in our LibApps My Profile widgets, other widget code. Paste this here, put in your specific ORCID ID, and save. And hopefully, if those three parts are working together correctly, you're going to get that nice list of my works. And we'll see that on the next slide. The thing is, though, that the data that is coming from ORCID is really only as good as the data that's been entered into ORCID. And so what we want to do is make sure that If there are any discrepancies, if this is showing up as error, badly formatted, you have to go into the ORCID system itself to do some cleanup. And so Barbara is going to talk about that side of it.
Okay, the cleanup. If you'll notice the top citation, Adelia, there are a lot of extra special characters who have that have shown up in the citation. A lot of this is where the librarian pulls the data from, or it's in ORCID and then it's pulled out into LibGuides. That can happen. So we've discovered that utilizing Google Scholar is relatively consistent in terms of how the citations pull up. However, if you notice in the second example, multiculturalism is missing the L in the citation, and then it ends up being pulled into ORCID. Now, when you go into ORCID and edit, the couple things to remember are there is a separate title field. The script pulls from the citation field. So if you want them both to show up the same, you have to edit in both places. Also, we chose BibTeX and a quasi-APA style. You guys may end up deciding to choose something else to adapt or do more coding to make the citations more formal. That's pretty much all that you have to do.
And we just want to give some acknowledgments. Our ORCID JavaScript implementation is based on implementation by Mike Cred from University of Dundee in Scotland, so thanks to him. And you can check out our LibGuides and our GitHub account for instructions and the source code to get this done, and follow along the steps, and hopefully you can get this set up on your profiles also. Thank you.
We've got some time. If anybody has some questions, please come on up to the microphone that's closest to you and ask away. Not everybody at once. I think everybody wants to go home. I don't blame you. Thank you so much for being here today. I would like to also let you know that the post-conference survey, please fill that out and have safe travels, and hopefully we'll see you next year. Bye.